I had to work 10 times harder than the kids who actually naturally have that ability. I'm a visual learner, I don't like reading. What does reading got to do with me? What? You can use that either to motivate you or to break you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of the Off-LMTS Podcast. I'm your host, Josiah Choto. And hello. Hello. Before we get started, let's actually get started. Let's get into it. So, I was actually contemplating a lot. I was actually in my thought process, deep thinking on who should be on the first episode of this podcast. Thinking if we have musicians onto the show first, or do we have entertainers or athletes or someone special that you guys might not even know. And I said the first episode should actually be me. Just to show you the things that we're gonna be talking about, and just to start off the release at least the tension in the air. Because I've already posted the first video, which is the introduction. If you guys haven't seen it, it will be probably here on the index page somewhere, here or here, one of these two corners. But I did do an introduction saying that I will bring on special guests, but I think the first guest should be me, to just share with you some of the tips that I know and the tips that I've learned that got me onto this point. So I'm just going to be talking about my childhood, how I got into the industry, and the formulas that I used, and the experience that I have from it, and the things I need to talk about when it comes to success, how to manage it, and how I coped with dealing with certain situations. Also in the teen period as well, and how life is now. So let's get started, shall we? Let's get started. So my name's Josiah Choto. As I said, I'm an actor, singer, dancer, entrepreneur, author, as well as other roles and other parts. I was born on Sunday, the 25th of February 2007. And the first 2 years, my parents and family members said that I've always been a bright, smiley child. I lit up the room. I didn't notice it until now, where I still have those kind of same characteristics, where I don't really go off of what people think of me. I'm basically myself. I wouldn't change myself for anyone. That also comes with a little bit of maturity, because they said I'm also mature for my age as well, which is surprising, because I've actually seen my little sister grow up a lot, and I've seen those same characteristics that I had when I was younger in her, but in a younger period, in a younger time frame. So I think it's just that having that, growing up in an environment where everyone is obviously jolly but also mature, so you know where you stand when it comes to hard work and determination. The household is filled with hardworking and very religious people, so those characteristics stay by me, and they still stay by me till today. But yes, born on Sunday the 25th of February 2007, and the first 2 years my parents and family members said I was a bright, jolly kid, firstborn. So I remember when I was 2 years old, that was when the changing point happened, when a total diversion happened in my life. So my auntie came over to our house. It was me, my dad, and my mum, and my auntie came over during the weekend. So she came over, and my mum and my auntie were talking in the kitchen, whilst me and my dad were in the lounge watching football. So a couple of hours later, my auntie and my mum entered the lounge, and then they sit me down for a talk. So I knew that talks rarely happened in the household, so I was thinking, oh, something might go down, or is it just a meeting, or what's going on here? So my auntie said, do you want to be in the same environment again and again, going through the same process again and again, going to the same places again and again? Or would you want to be in an environment where you can learn, you can be free, take away a lot of things, like farming, for example, because my auntie's a farmer, so it goes hand in hand, and me going with her to Africa, Zimbabwe. So she said, would you rather stay here in England, or would you rather go to Zimbabwe? Now, I even remember this like photographically. I remember everything that happened that day, from the morning until like night till I slept. So obviously going through my thought process and from what I saw from the first 2 years, I kind of I, I kind of got used to that environment. I got used to the norm of that environment. Just being in the same place at the same time on the same day, doing the same things, right? So this was kind of like a breakaway for me because I was so used to seeing the normal, standards in life. So this will be probably the best way for me to break out of it. So I gladly accepted. I gladly accepted the offer, and couple of days later, I was on a plane going into Zimbabwe. I was a little I wasn't used to it. I wasn't really on board with it as such. I was a little bit nervous because I was like, oh, what if this happens or what if that happens? Sometimes you're a bit critical to some surprises, or you have a little bit of you overthink some situations, which is something that I did. So the moment we landed, I just fell in love with the country. No doubt about it. Like the first, the first foot that I stepped on onto the airport back in the day, I just fell in love with it because the environment was so bright. It was so vibrant, and the people there, especially the people, were very, very, very kind. And in the UK, everyone has their own individual route. So if you get a smile, like a normal British smile, just know that it's good luck for the day. It's probably the highlights of your day. But in Zim, it's just like everyone is so happy. Everyone is so welcoming and so caring. So when we land, we go straight for a road trip. So we go on a road trip all over Africa, South Africa. So like South Africa, Botswana, uh, Malawi, Mozambique, and all the countries surrounding South Africa. So I that was back in 2009, and that day when we went to South Africa, I that was the day that Michael Jackson died. So what happened was I remember we go for a pit stop, get some food, and we just tour around Johannesburg for a little bit. So I remember we go to a CD shop, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I can get myself some cartoons. I can watch a little bit of Teletubbies. I could watch myself a little bit of regular show because that was the first time. Oh no, I don't think regular show was even a show back then. Powerpuff Girls. There you go. I used to like Powerpuff Girls a little bit controversial there, but I love Powerpuff Girls. Loved Powerpuff Girls. Don't. Yeah. I'm just gonna leave that there. So Teletubbies, Powerpuff Girls. I don't know, Tom and Jerry. Like I was thinking, cartoons. I'm fine with cartoons. I love cartoons. So we go to the shop, and then I noticed that my auntie was only buying CDs that had the name Michael Jackson on it. Since it was the day Michael Jackson died, they thought, oh, it's gonna be a good investment for us to buy it. So if we sell it later on, it's gonna catch value. So what happened was we bought the CDs, and I was always curious about it. So the whole road trip, like as and the whole road trip, I was thinking about those CDs. I was thinking, what makes it so valuable for my auntie to buy multiple stacks of CDs, and not really get anything else. So as we were touring, and then we eventually got back to Zimbabwe, I it was dark at that time, so the gate was open, and then we go through the gate, and then I remember everyone goes to sleep. So I'm asleep, but I'm still thinking of that CD in my brain, in my mind. So I'm saying to myself, why don't I have a quick peek at it? Let's see what the CD has. So cheeky little Josiah comes out of bed, and then he goes into the bag, my auntie's handbag, and I take out one of the CDs, which was the Michael Jackson Budapest tour, and I put it into the CD player. And the moment I hit play, I've never looked back since. I never looked back since, because that was definitely 100% a turning point in my life when it comes to finding a passion for something. And that tour, just that road trip itself, already changed my perspective on I should not I can be elsewhere. I'm not restricted to one place. I'm not restricted to be doing the same thing again and again. I knew that there were more possibilities out there. So then I was thinking, the UK, would the UK have different things like this? Like, it made me think it made me develop a mindset, install a mindset, where I was thinking to myself, huh, I gotta work harder. I got to get to this point. I need to get to a certain point where I need to move away from my norm. It broke my it broke my narrative on life from an early age, because I was always thinking, oh, go to the supermarket, oh, let's go get some, some fish and chips, McDonald's, in the buggy. Like, it completely changed my narrative now, because now, what from that experience, I was saying to myself, I am free. I'm not restricted to what I need to. I'm not restricted to what I see, basically. I can see more. I can do more. I can be able to be in another country, do this, do that. So it really just changed my narrative. It just flipped the switch for me. So I put the CD in and I watched it 24 hours straight. That night I did not go to sleep. That's why you see sometimes when you see eye wrinkles, it's because of that experience. Because I've been watching it 24/7 when I was younger, and just seeing the way he controls the stage, and the way he sung and danced, and the crowd control for me was really like, oh my goodness gracious me, he's that valuable. Like, everyone used to faint before he actually sung or did anything. He just jumped off the stage with glasses and staring into the atmosphere, and someone is already passed out, like fully gassed out. Like, it looks like they went raving 24/7. Like, they went to like a party and they literally looked gassed. That's the same way that Michael Jackson show was. They looked completely gassed. Everyone was fainting. Like, it was crazy to me. I was thinking, if he can do that, why can't I do that in a in a different way, in a different aspect? So I developed that mindset of watching this CD and other CDs, Michael Jackson CDs, repetitively, to see where I can go with it, because I was really interested in the way he moved, and the way he sung, and all this and that. I remember that I didn't even go and eat food. I remember food being brought into the room because I was just addicted to it. I remember my auntie saying, "Josiah, it's time to come off and start going outside. It's time for you to go outside." I'm like, "Okay." After this show, and then the show was like 2 hours long. I made sure I picked the longest video possible before I could go outside and start playing. But that's when it installed the vision aspect, the way I think, the way I see things in a new light, the way I that experience really opened a new world to me. That experience really made me see that I can do more. Especially from a young age, because the moment when you install it young, you just know that you're gonna use it time and time again, and you know it's not gonna fail. You know it's gonna work continuously. So fast forward 4 years later, I'm now an agricultural farmer, as well as a actor, singer, dancer, courtesy of Michael Jackson. I'm now back in the UK, and this was the time I was going to school. So year one and year two were the time. No, it was reception and year one, where this was the time when I came back. So reception in year one, that was like the changeover period. So I go into the UK, and then I realized that what I've learned are the things that kids here don't learn. I noticed that from a young age. So whenever I enter the classroom, I used to be like, "Oh, let's dance, let's do this, let's do that," and then most of the kids, they were like, "I don't know how to do that." And then I asked them, "What do you want to be when you're older?" "I don't know." And this was like a 4-year-old Josiah asking these questions. I still remember these questions, and and then that's when I realized that I'm different. I remember there's a quote in, I think it was a book called Wonder, when I read when I was younger, saying, "You can't stand in if you were born to stand out." And when I read that book, it made me realize that I'm not one of them, I'm not I'm not a normal person in society. I'm I've installed a creative mindset that it takes years for people to learn. It takes even their whole lifetime to get something that quickly. And I just got it in under 2 years, and I've developed it and made it into my own character and characteristics. So when it comes to me doing freestyling now, it's now second nature because I don't really have to think of doing. I don't have to really like think of the moves I'm gonna do. I just do them naturally, and that's something I need to clear up because obviously that's one step into another level, but I need to develop that stage now into another light so that you guys can see new dances and get new like a new appearance or a new view of how I dance. So that's why I'm always trying to make the things I do better. I realized that I was different from the kids in the UK, and what made me confirm that was because I remember there was like I think it was like a summer holiday or something, or summer break or a fun fair at the school, or function. It was something to do with the school function. I think we just came back from a school trip, and the rest of the time was for us to use free time. And I remember I was just dancing and singing, and everyone was crowding around me. Everyone was like dancing and everything. And then I remember there was this teacher, male teacher, and he he said, "Oh, you can't do that." And I was saying to myself, "Why can't I do that?" And then I was saying to myself, "Oh, so I can't dance now? I can't sing." I was saying that in my mind. I was like, "I can't dance. I can't sing now." So he said, "Oh, can you please stop?" I was like, "Okay, all right." So I stop, and then I move on to something else, and then I just dance somewhere else. And then I remember he put me on detention for a little bit. And from a 4-year-old's perspective, you're saying to yourself, "I didn't do nothing wrong. I'm just being me." And I think that's when I realized that there are people who want to stop you from actually doing well or progressing. They want you to stay in the norm, stay nowhere but the norm, and nothing but the norm. And I was kind of like a standout figure in a way, where others were always dedicated to staying in the same place. I was always moving about. I was always finding something new that I could do. And I think that's something that I didn't like, or probably something that he wanted to do, but he never really got the opportunity to do it. So that's why he made the decision to put me in the naughty corner. And then obviously seeing that from a young age, I realized, and using those points now, I now see it more often in other situations or other circumstances when people say, "Oh, this person's doing this and I do that." It's because people either want to stop you from doing well, or they actually want you to fail, realistically. But yeah, I realized from a young age that this wasn't me. This whole staying in the norm thing wasn't for me. So I remember I changed four schools into four schools, St. Mark's, and then Trinity, and then all these different schools. I changed into four different schools until I found one that sat right with me. I mean, of course, it wasn't really. It was actually a really it was actually a really good school. I'll forever be grateful for it. Fair Lane Primary School. I'll always be forever grateful for it because they saw the abilities that I have and the creativity I have, and then they saw that I wasn't really in the norm per se. So they kind of adapted to my stage at that time. They kind of adapted around it and made that into a school environment. The creativity that I had in my mind, they tried to change it into a school aspect, which I really enjoyed a lot because they saw where I was coming from and they saw how creative I could be and how I brought out the best in some of the kids in the school. Even though I never really saw myself as a motivator, I somehow motivated people. And so yeah, so I remember there was year 3 teacher. I'm now in year 3. I mean year 2. Misty Adosiu. I'll forever be grateful for Misty Adosiu. So she helped me with my school, like the things I'm meant to learn for school. And let me just tell you here, maths. No, I'm maths. Really? Do I need to know maths? The only maths I knew was like the coordinates and the angles used on the farm, the soil used on the farm, like 20 by 45, like the measurements for the farm. English, I was using mother tongue most of the time, so my English was kind of broken, and I came back with a little bit of twang, with a little bit of the motherly twang to it. Science, the only science I knew was agriculturally and the science of dancing and singing, and history. The only history I knew was Michael Jackson and staying in the house and developing my craft. So my school grades were looking like a F, if I'm being completely honest with you. But Mr. Adosu really like guided me into the school system, and then at the end of that year, there's this MVP event where they do head teachers awards. So it's basically like the MVP of that year. So they do MVP of year 3, MVP of year 4, year 5, year 6, etc. So I remember me getting a head teacher's award in year 3, even though it doesn't seem major, but to me, it seemed, it actually opened a new door for me, because I now see that if I put my mind to something and if I work hard to get it, the rewards will benefit. The rewards will show. I always use this example saying that, let's say if you have a door, right? And behind that door are the things that you need: your goals, your visions, your aspirations, your dreams. And you have 100 keys on a keychain. So you put the first key on the keychain. You put the first key on the door. It doesn't open. Second key doesn't open. Third key doesn't open. And then the fourth key, you put it in, and then you just say, "Sod it. You know what? I'm just dropping the keys here, and then I'm just storming off." You didn't see the other 96 keys that could have opened that door for you. There's all, and it goes back to the famous quote: "Fall down 7 times, get up the eighth." No matter what you want to do, no matter how small or how big the goal is, if you put your mind to something that you really want to do, and you really want to do and want to succeed in life, it'll be a no-brainer. It'll literally like click, like it'll just click. It'll automatically come to you. So it's just testing different boundaries, just going through the motion and seeing how you can progress. If you have that formula, how to make it better and how to create it into your own formula and make it you. Literally. So year 3 happened, and then year 2, and then moving on to year 3. So now year 3 is now when I turn 8 years old, and my mum says, "Okay, Josiah, these dances are driving me crazy. The way you're dancing, I can just hear the loudspeaker just going around the house. So why not use these talents that you have into an agency?" So I was like, "Oh, okay, that's fine with me." And when I was 8, I remember now getting the head teacher's award. I was able to do anything. So at that point, football was popular in the school. So I was like, "Oh, let me just adopt that football role." So I remember playing football for a little bit, getting good at it, and then I just dropped it. So now mum says agency. I'm like, "Okay, agency. I like what I hear." So then the agency rolls around, and it was on TV. It was broadcasted on national television, like on BBC, and on ITV. They had like a seasonal show at that time. And I was saying to myself, "Okay, so this is the competition I'm going to be up against. I'm going to be auditioning against." I remember seeing kids reading scripts and actors reading scripts, and I was saying to myself, "But I don't like reading. I'm a visual learner. I don't like reading. What does reading got to do with me? What? Why? What?" So I was always like bamboozled and whatnot. And I was always a visual learner. I always watched a video, and then the moment I saw an opening, I used to pounce at it and then just make it better, so that I could, use that visual aspect and make it mine. So reading books was not I never really liked reading books when I was younger. So that was something I had to give up. That uncomfortability, I had to give it up because I have to lose something in order to gain something. But this example, I needed to lose me not reading in order for me to be able to audition. And this was me and my mum's decision, really, because we thought about this and then we saw what the other kids did that made them better during their acting periods, and we were on YouTube investigating, and I realized that everyone reads at least like a poetry book. So I had to drop that, not attitude, but I had to drop that aspect of not reading books, now reading books. And then the day of the audition rolls around, and before the day of the audition, I was overthinking a lot. I was really overthinking everything. I was saying, am I really good enough to be in this industry? Am I capable to be in this industry? Because what I watched was kids who were even younger than me on mainstream TV acting and whatnot, and I was saying to myself, okay, this is the level of competition I'm going to be up against. I'm not too sure about that. And also, being in that industry and being able to be an aspiring actor, pardon me, singer and dancer, I had to work 10 times. I had to work 10 times harder than the kids who actually naturally have that ability. The reason why is because the kids who already have, that name and have acting families and it runs through the generations, it's easy for them to pick up that mindset and to pick up that belief and to pick up that, that talent. Whereas for me, I wasn't born with that. I had to really develop my craft in order for me to get to a point where it was second nature to me. So there was that aspect of it. And then the other aspect was on the audition day, there were 500 kids auditioning. Yes, 500 kids, and they only wanted 5 kids. Or not even 5, just 2 minimum. Or yeah, 2 minimum, or 2 maximum even. So obviously I was overthinking. I never doubted myself. I knew from that Michael Jackson period onwards, I always knew that I cannot doubt myself. I never doubted myself because if I could do it then, I can do it now and I can do it on forever. So doubt, the way I see doubt is, look, the way I see doubt is the same way I see opportunities. Why cry over an opportunity that's already passed when you can already use that same experience that you had from that doubt into a, you know what I mean? So the best way to word it, let me simplify that for you. So the way I see doubt is, let's say if you were meant to be, you're an athlete, for example, and let's say if you are a footballer, and let's say you're getting scouted for Tottenham Hotspur or Arsenal, and let's say Arsenal don't pick you or Tottenham don't pick you because you weren't doing something or you weren't training hard enough or you did not pass like the test that they needed for you to do, and you start doubting yourself and say, oh, if only if I went over that program, if only if I did this, only if I do that. Why not do that now, and then when you reapply you can add that opportunity, you can add those same plans that you had for later chances. Why, this is always goes back to the quote, why cry over spoiled milk? A baby cries over spoiled milk. Why cry for spoiled milk? If the opportunity is gone, so be it. That's a part of your experience. Now that is a part of your story. You can use that either to motivate you or to break you and to go and sit back and be lazy and complacent. It's kind of like a dancer. If you don't dance for a while and you become lazy and complacent, you will look rusty. Every dance that you do, you will start to look rusty. Unless you start putting more work and more effort into it, you'll be okay, honestly. So the audition day rolls around and I get there. And I remember we go into the room. Before we go into the room, I say to my mum, um, wish me good luck. And then she says, it's not luck, it's blessings. And whatever you do there, Go at 100%. Do what you have to do. You've worked not even 6 years of your life to be at this stage. And that really, like, at that moment in time, it just installed a drive in me. I felt fire. Like, I just felt fire boiling in. And I was saying to myself, I can do it. I can do it. I've worked too hard for me. I can't work this hard for me to fail. It's not possible for me to fail. So, what happened was I go into the audition room, and and then we do the vocal warm ups, and then we do stretches. And we were meant to rehearse one song as well as acting role, so like a sentence in a play. So then we go through that period. Every kid goes through that period. There are two examiners, and we are all sitting down on the floor, and they pick the person one by one in ascending order. So then when it was my turn, I remember I sung The Princess and the Frog, Dig a Little Deeper. So, you gotta dig a little deeper. Yeah, that song, yeah. So I sung that song, and then I think it was like a Shakespearean sentence or line, and then I sat back down, and then all the other kids did their role. And I gave them my 100%. I did all the dancing, all the, like, you gotta dig a little deeper. Like, I went into it, like, not the way I did it now, but I went into it. I was in my bag, to say the least. So the moment that was done, there was this waiting process. So all the kids there were just waiting. And I remember I was playing around with some of the kids there. And what do you expect? It's my first audition. It was my first time being in the industry. I did not know what to do. Obviously, I could have sat down by myself and just sat down and been responsible. But me not knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have been able to do so. So what I did, so after that audition and after the whole process, my mum says what you did there was no good. And then I said, wait, what did I do? What did I do? So then she said, have you ever seen someone in a workplace go to work to just play around? Have you ever gone to a workplace and seen someone start playing with toys instead of going onto the laptop, logging on and doing their actual work? I said, no, I haven't. And then she said, why are you doing it then now? Why are you doing it now? Why are you playing around? I could have came up with the excuse, oh, because I didn't know, but I waited for mum's response. So then she said, you need to know when it's time to play and when it's time not to play. And that stuck with me ever since. Those words itself just are still powerful to me till this day. So I've realized that even when I'm acting or going to an audition, I know when it's time to play and I know when it's time not to play. Before you're going into an audition, I always say to myself, this is not your time to play. You're going to give in your 100%. Don't waste your energy going there to talk to people and making friends with people. I mean, might be something that you guys might do. I don't mind it. I mean, to each their own. But for me personally, hard work comes from being 100%. And being successful comes from being 100%. Working from the ground upwards. So when I was auditioning, I always said to myself, okay, this is time for me not to play. This is the time for me to go there and show them what I can actually do in this field and in this craft, which I did. So the end of the audition happens, and they said that they'll give us a response after 2 days. So 2 days fly by, and I'm still watching Michael Jackson as well as watching FIFA 14, and then mum gets a ping on her phone. It comes from Gmail. And we were all in the house. So we get a ping. My mum looks at her phone, and then she looks at me. This was in the kitchen, so she looks at me, and then she looks at the phone, and she's quiet, dead quiet. And then my auntie was there. Funny enough, my auntie's always there on the good times. Would you believe that? So my auntie was there, and then she looked, and then she covered her mouth like this. And then I was like, what is it? Because during that time, being so young and not being able to see what's going on, you have a lot of mixed emotions. You have excitement, as well as doubt, as well as fear, as well as joy. And those four emotions together are just the worst experience. Honestly, I did not know how I coped. So I'm like, tell me what it is, like with hype. And my mum shows me the phone, and then it says, "Welcome to the agency that I'm gonna be acting for." And I was rejoicing, even though I just. But the thing is, it's like I already knew that I was meant to be there. I knew that it was my time to shine. So that was really the first test of the formula. And I remember during that same year, I got the audition. I got an audition for a musical theater show, which was The Bodyguard. Rachel Marin playing as Whitney Houston. You know the movie. Now into a show version. So this time they were doing the UK tour back in 2015, and I go for the first audition. I get recalled. Second audition, we go to Sylvia Young. We go to Sylvia Young, and then that's when I saw a lot of kids who are older than me doing what doing the role that I'm meant to do. When I say older than me, I'm 8 at this time now. And then there are kids there who are 13, 14, 12, 11, and probably one of the youngest was 10 even. So obviously being the youngest there, I had to prove myself with all these guys here who can do front flips, back flips, somersaults, side flips, and all this and that. And I'm just there doing my Michael Jackson, all the hee and all the moonwalks and all the, robotics and everything. And I'm just like, how would I compete with these guys scratching my head and everything? And I'm just like, oh man, I might pick the wrong industry. But the thing is, I realized that being in that environment helps you a lot. Being in that environment where people are better than you helps you a lot. Because that day, when people were, because it was after the whole rehearsal, we have a little freestyle bit. So we have to show the choreographers what we can do to dance. So I remember there were like kids who did some moves that I liked. So I had to implement those moves into my mind really quickly before it was too late for me to go and do my own freestyle. So I implemented some of those techniques into my own way. This is the first time I actually did choreography in my mind, saying, "Oh, let's take that out and doing this in." So I planned in my whole dance routine. So then that ends, and then they said they'll give us a response the day after. And the day after rolls around, and I was one of the youngest kids to ever play young Fletcher in The Bodyguard. And it's definitely like a huge milestone, especially being so young and the first debut audition that I've done, which is crazy. So I get the audition, and then I'm touring with Alexandra Burke and 5 other kids who I'm still close friends with to this day, every single one of them. And we did the UK tour in 2015. I did a Monte Carlo tour with one of the other kids, and then I did a China tour in 2017. And I just knew that the formula works. Hard work equals repetition. Hard work, repetition, hard work, repetition equals success. And that's always worked for me. So then after the Bodyguard tour, I carried on. I went on to Lion King, the Cub School, and then I was able to do basically a dress rehearsal show and a premiere show for them, as well as being backstage for like experience, which was really good. As to my resume, and then I did Kinky Boots, and then I did Caroline No Change back in 2016, all 3 in the UK, which was also a big commemoration. And then 2019 was the basically my bow out, because after this I really didn't want to do no more shows, because this was what I worked so hard for. The 10 years, 10 plus years of my life have gone into being able to use a single CD to make my life different, to change my aspect on life. 2019, I was in Thriller. So went through the whole audition phase, met Michael Jackson's like manager and everything, director and the people who made the music and everything, which was like a blessing in disguise. Like it was a proper, not even in disguise, it was a blessing altogether. So I was able to play young Michael Jackson for a full year, and when that year was over, I said, that's it. That's all I need to do. After the first show, I said to myself, after the first show, my goal's finished. My whole childhood is done. Like, that's a big tick off the box. And this is something that most kids wouldn't be able to do when they were young or when they were younger. And I've realized that never take anything for granted. Don't take nothing for granted. Everything that you have done, don't look at it as like a burden or like, oh, this person's doing this so much better, or Josiah's doing this so much better, or this person's doing this so much better. It's best to look back and look at the blessings that you already have instead of not having blessings at all. Because I'm gonna be so real. I'm going to be completely honest with you. There were times where I was overthinking and saying, oh, this person has done 3+ years in Thriller. How come I'm only doing one? And I've realized that all I did need was 1 year. All I did need was that 1 year of being able to be in the footsteps of young Michael Jackson and all this and that. So it's best for you to be open-minded. I've realized that during the years, being open-minded leads you into many other doors, to other paths in life. So that was the whole childhood experience. Now, my experiences altogether, one, repetitiveness. Be repetitive. Always be repetitive. Even though I've always said this to close friends and peers, I always say, be different. Be unique. Be yourself. Whenever you're doing something that you like, if you are finding yourself lost, or you're finding yourself in a period where you're not really finding things, or the jobs are not coming in properly, find something that you like. Double down on it. Keep on working on that thing that you like, and add that into the world. Like, add the things that you've learnt and input that into that career, that certain path you're going to take. And I have a lot of older mentors and celebrity mentors, and they always say to me, you guys are lucky. You guys are blessed even to have social media on your hands. If they had social, they always say, if they had social media, they would not be they would be far greater. They'll be bigger than they are now. And I've seen that now. And another mentor has always said to me, if only the clock could be reversed. And that's really stuck with me. Because let's say if you started off at 100 years old, right? The things that you've learnt when you were 100 years old, the things that you've been through when you're 100 years old. Now imagine that going from 100 downwards, instead of 0 to 100, 100 to 0. So imagine all that information stored in your mind, going down 99, 98, 97, all the way to your 20s, 19s, 6s. Wouldn't you be successful with all the things that you know? Wouldn't you find something that you would have been 100% successful in your eyes, or in your terms? 100% you will be. So don't take time for granted. The seconds that are passing by now, use them. Because I always say to myself and to others, time is money, but also time could be a burden for you. Now, I mean that in different ways. I'll tell you one of the ways that I mean that as an example. So, as an example, I say that when I was younger, at 8 years old, I used to see kids on YouTube getting like 1 million views for doing like random skits and whatnot. I was saying to myself, why can't I do this? Why are they better than me? What are they doing that I'm not doing? And then I realized that it's me versus me. I'm playing a game against myself. I'm boxing myself. I'm in the octagon with myself. Putting a little bit of UFC reference right there. But I'm in the octagon by myself. I am racing myself. I am racing myself. I am literally in competition with myself. If I am lazy and complacent, that's how my results are going to be. If I am hardworking and you can see that work going through like 24/7, you would already see that as well. So there should be no reason why you should be crying in a corner and saying to yourself, I can't do it, because you can. It's able for you to. If I wasn't the best, I'm not the best person in school. I'll be so real with you. I'm not the brainiest person in school. I'm not the person who gets things one time when it comes to schoolwork. But if I keep on working on that, if I keep on going on with schoolwork, if I keep on learning, and if I keep on going through that guideline of doing better, doing more, of course I'll be successful. Same thing goes with the acting. The more auditions you have, the more experience you get. And another thing that I've learned from auditions mainly is that the directors want to see how prepared you are, not how well you can act. I've noticed that when I was young as well, because I remember when I used to over prepare, and this was just by nature. It wasn't by force. It was just by nature. Where I used to prepare. If they said, "Oh, do a script or a play that you like," I used to prepare three, minimum three. And if they said, "Oh, prepare 2 songs," I used to prepare four. And the reason why I did that was because I realized when I was young that the director wants to see how prepared you are for the role, how prepared you are in that situation, how you keep your time. And I've noticed that when I did an audition for, I think it was like a Netflix show, they said, "Oh, they told me to prepare like an act." So I prepared an act, and they said, "Okay, do you have any more?" And then I said, "Oh, yes, of course. Which one do you guys want to hear?" And they were shocked because they did not realize that I was over prepared. So be over prepared when you're going into a new field. And if you're going into a new aspect or like a new career, for example, prepare yourself for the unexpected. Prepare yourself for the unexpected because you never really know what's going to happen. You don't know what people are going to ask. And that's really just resonated with me. And that really like showed me how people go through different industries and they still don't know where they are, where they stand in life, and where they stand when it comes to, is this what I want to do forever? Is this something that I want to do continuously? Of course, it's good for you to tap into different territories and different lights, but you need to be ready. You need to prepare yourself, because if one industry crumbles, you can go on to the next. If that industry crumbles, you can go on to the next, and so on and so forth. So that same formula that you used, don't break something that's already been used, is what I'm trying to say. And then that leads me onto teenagehood. So 13, 2020, that was when the lockdown happened. And before the lockdown, I was auditioning for Adidas, and the director was the one who did Vossi Bop for Stormzy and whatnot. And it was an international Adidas commercial, or a series even. And I was one of the main kids in that in the role. And the moment I was gonna go for dress rehearsals on a Saturday in March, bang, lockdown happens. Officially, like the lockdown has been spoken and everything's just been shut down. And obviously I was gutted. And this goes back to doubt, because I'm saying, if only, if I did this, if I did that, but there's nothing else I could do. All I can do is just take the same formula that I used, use it again, because I now know it's possible for me to be in the TV industry. This is the first of many. I always see things as as especially if I'm going into a new industry, I see things first time as a new origin point. I start from the very beginning. I start from the ground upwards. So with musical theatre, the reason why I went down the route of musical theatre is because it's live and it only happens once, and also because of Michael Jackson and that goal that I had. But the real reason why musical theatre, I think it's harder than TV, is because I wouldn't say harder, but it's more of a challenge, because that person buying a ticket to see you and see other actors perform or dancers perform, you have to put your 110% in, because they might not see the show again. They'll move on and say, well, that was a bad show. Oh, I didn't get nothing from that show. Oh, that kid in that show, oh, he didn't do nothing. So you need to make sure that you're putting your all in. When I say all in, I mean 110% in. And you'll see the rewards of it. You'll see how that mindset will help you go into the acting industry when it comes to like TV, television, acting in plays and whatnot. And mind you, I was also in TV for a little bit when I was a child, like House for Three, BBC shows, various short films and whatnot. But now I'm moving into a new industry that has now shut down because of lockdown, and I now need to find something that resonates with me, how that same rule applies for different industries. And now I'm finding something new. I've now looked at things in a new light, and I'm now thinking, I'm in my thought process. So one day I remember no, the first day of lockdown, I had a diary, and I was looking at the diary and I was saying to myself, I could add every single date of lockdown into this book. And that's what I did. I applied every single thing when it comes to what I'm meant to do, what I need to do, and my thoughts and emotions at that time, that moment in time. So when I first finish off writing that, my creative juices start to flow in. So I put music on in my room, pardon me. I put music on in my room, and then I'm now in my thought process. So now I have a pen and paper, and I'm writing down the things that I could do, the possibilities. So I say, oh, um, let's see here. Skits, yeah, I'm gonna write that down. I could do that. What else? I could also do this, yeah, I could do that as well. But how about that? And then I just scratch it out, and then I found something that I always realistically I never knew that I wanted to do, which was writing books. So when I started to write books down, that's what made my thought process go to another level. And I realized that that's the thing that I want to do, because the more I think about it, the more I want to do it. So I think about it, I'm like, huh, huh, wow. What book am I going to make? How is this going to interact? How is the audience going to feel about this book? How are they going to react when I post this book? How is social media going to perceive this book? I always ask these questions. So then I knew that that was the thing that I wanted to do. Then came in The Adventures of Finn and Nuke. So it's a self-published book, actually. It was first self-published. And then Author House came to me and they said, oh, we want to promote your book, and we want to, put it on our pages. Da, 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 da. But then at that time, I was doing every single illustration. I was doing all the chapters for the short stories, because they were all short stories in a book. And I remember that I learnt everything a beginner or even a novice, or not even a novice, like a pro has to know about books, publishing, making the book, and everything between the lines, basically. And I remember when they came to me, I was like, I'm getting full pay on the book. I've already sold 100 books in the span of 3 weeks, or not even 2 weeks. And I was saying to myself, this is progress, steady progress, but this could escalate me to another level now. So then when it comes to prices, I knew that I need to negotiate. So I was like, I'll take your offer, but we have to go off of 80-20. You get 20%, I get 80%. And we were discussing along the lines until they reached to my agreement. And then that's when I realized that the formula of hard work and determination on the things that you like always works. Don't doubt yourself. When you have something that you like, it could be anime, for example. When you have something that you like, just keep on going at it. Just keep on. Now with social media, everything's so much easier. Just post something that you like about that show, or do a series or a whole season on that show, and then you move on to the next show, and then you keep on going to the next show. Highlights. You could do highlights of that show. You could do the best fighting scenes of that show. You could do the most emotional scenes of that show. You know what? There's a list of possibilities that you could go on, and you can just keep that going, and then you'll see the rewards when you're like successful, just based of keeping on that basis of that rule. So it's just applying the goals and just applying hard work into what you know will do you wonders. So the first book gets published, and it's now all over. It was sold all over the world, which is surprising to me. And then it was sold. Happily grateful for that. And then I start to move on to and then we move on to 2022. And then that's when the C2J business, my clothing business, starts to build up. I created C2J back in 2019, just based off of my creativity side. So the same day I did the books, where I was writing everything down and I was saying to myself, this works, that works, and also this works, I also wrote down the same possibilities I could use on a clothing business. So then C2J happened. And it's an online store, and then when lockdown happened, that was when everything was in production. So I had a lot of tracksuits, and I had a lot of jumpers, and I had a lot of sweatpants and everything in stock, but I could not sell them because delivery wasn't really around, and everyone was like quiet, and everything was quiet because of lockdown. I realized that, okay, when lockdown comes out, this is when social media starts to kick in for me. This is when I started posting like videos consistently on my channel, just promoting C2J, and then people started to inquire, saying, "Oh, can you do in this color? Can you do in that color?" And then just using those inspirations and those guiding points that people used, I just increased the level of standard in the business, where before it was just a plain CJ. It didn't have the 2 in it, the Roman numeral 2 in it. So then, as you can see the process that I used in the first original like print of the design and everything like that. Just bought it off of eBay, or bought it out of like a shop, the plain tracksuit from a shop, and putting it into a embroidery machine, and then just doing a simple CJ, then slapping a simple CJ on it. So yeah, so then CJ happened, and the process was pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And then 2022 was when the brand started to blossom. Everyone was starting to buy off the company, which I'm really happy for. And now we're in a stable place. 2022 was also a new territory. First of many TV and entertainment industries. Pinewood Studios, I think you guys have already seen. I can't say what it is just yet. It's all in a hush-hush. But that was also a really good experience. And then where I am now, 2023. Now, 2023 is right now shaping up to be a good year. Everything is now moving steadily than it was the last couple of years. And now I'm just learning how to become a young adult. Driving license, as well as the business is booming, and just keeping on track with everything. So I hope this really just gave you a little bit of insight on how to go about some of the things that you have challenges on. It's been your boy, Josiah Choto, and remember, it's off limits. Peace.
Dollar for every time these niggas hate. I be rich like Jen, yeah. I got rich with baby face. We came up just make a play, and I feel just like Beyonce, nigga.